Hi there. So I'm slightly breaking my vow and I am making another cordwood challenge / axe content video, and because I thought it was maybe something that I could contribute, and it's just, I don't really have a lot to say about sharpening or style of cut, timber sports versus whatnot, and I think Steven and Ben and a bunch of other people have a lot of more informed input into those topics. But I thought it might be interesting to just discuss like strategies where you can, how to approach like taking apart a tree with an axe, in terms of how to approach bucking efficiently. And so I just thought I would make this real quick video about one method for if you're taking a tree apart. So I just felled this tree. It's a white ash, and it went more or less as planned. There was this little maple here, so I ended up having to stand about right here and, you know, cut both cuts from one side of the tree, which I was just recently talking with Ben online and saying how I thought that was kind of unreasonable thing to ask most of the time. But, you know, and here I have a situation where I kind of had to do it. But you can see on my felling cuts, like this is my right-handed face cut, and it's pretty clean. Here's the hinge, you know, and then you can see how rough my left-handed cut was, you know. So it's very difficult to do unless you're naturally ambidextrous, or unless you have an enormous amount of time and trees to practice doing it on. But anyway, and then the tree more or less fell where I wanted to, but I was actually trying to get it to drop there. So you can see it's a couple of degrees off of where I wanted it to go. But what happened was, as it was falling, it was basically falling in that direction, and then the top got tangled up with these branches from this maple over here, and they sort of compressed together, and then the whole tree like kind of bounced off and came down here. So more or less it went where I wanted it to, but not with extreme precision. And I generally don't try and drop a tree very far from the direction that it wanted to lean, and it was actually leaning towards this way. And I think if there hadn't been that tree there, I think it would have fallen right there, because that's actually where it wanted to go. And in general, since that was open, I kind of just, I picked this tree because it was like leaning towards a fairly open space. So okay, so basically what I want to talk about is how I limb up a tree like this to help me buck it. So let me just limb it up real quick, and then I'll show you that completed process, and then show you why I think that's helpful. Okay, so I just finished limbing, and let me just show you kind of how I have it set up. And I want to just say this is one possible strategy. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, or that even that this is going to be a workable scenario in every situation. And my experience is colored by the fact that I've been cutting mostly hardwood, which in my wood lot, so most of the trees that I'm cutting are fairly straight and mostly have limbs up at the top. So if you're cutting, you know, conifers that have limbs from the bottom all the way to the top, then this might not work, or you might have to modify it depending on where your branches are. So basically, here's most of the limbs. Actually, that's pretty much all the limbs, except for I left this stub right here. And then this was actually the biggest branch, but it was very vertical, so I chose not to use it. So what this enables you to do is two things. And the system that I'm talking about is you leave a stout branch that you then can use as a lever, and then you need another pole either from the tree you cut or from somewhere else that you use in combination with your branch to sort of stabilize your tree as you're bucking it. And this is for bucking it when you're just taking the tree apart in the woods, okay? So what this enables you to do is basically it stabilizes the tree so that the log doesn't roll very much on you. And then the other thing it allows you to do is once you're done bucking, making your bucking cuts on one side of the log, you can then roll the entire log 180 degrees and then make your bucking cuts from the same position. So let me just kind of demonstrate that, and maybe that'll make more sense. So one thing, that bucking cut was too wide and I went well through the center. So I should have taken a narrower notch. But so now what I actually like to do is do numerous bucking cuts along the log at the same time, and then roll the log and then do the other side. But I'm just going to demonstrate, you know, that lever, and then I'll knock off the other thing. So let me just roll the log and then we'll cut through this one just as a demo. So the nice thing is, that puts my, my cut 180 degrees from where it was, and makes it really easy to aim. So that's the gist of it. So I feel like it gives you really solid control of the log. And the other thing is you can, like, if you're standing behind the log like I like to do, it gives you the option of coming in, coming in sort of at an angle where you would swing naturally, and then because you're just pivoting, the log 180 degrees, your cut is, your back cut on the other side of the notch, you can make it, 180 degrees from where you were cutting before, standing in the same spot. And I feel like, those two notches were not my finest work, I'll be honest. But that's the gist. So, and then what I would do would be, go along here, the length of the log that I have, like, clear chopping space with no obstructions, and then just cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notches, and then roll the log, knock those off, and then often the times you've lightened the tree enough to where you can drag it into the clear, if that makes sense. So you can see kind of my pole, and then the pole acts as a counterweight, and prevents, the log from rolling. Now, there are places, definitely if, like, you're felling into really thick brush, then, this isn't a particularly useful system, because you're going to have to chop the log up into sections and get it out into the clear where you have freedom to swing your axe, And also, this isn't a really great system for logs that are curved, for obvious reasons, because a curved log, is going to fight you. It's not going to roll the way a fairly straight log like this one is. If you have a big curve in the log, this kind of is out the window, at least for the curved section. You got to chop that out or chop it a different strategy. So I don't know, hopefully this is useful. Okay, so I've got, you know, some cuts made here, and you can see maybe I made quite a few cuts along this side, and then these little trees were in the way, so I jumped over on this other side and did a couple. And it doesn't really matter, because when you roll the log, you know, 180 degrees, the cuts are going to be on the opposite side, you know, and so the opposite face is going to be exposed from where you just chopped. It doesn't matter, you know, like these ones, I was standing over here, it's going to roll, and I can still chop right here on the opposite side. Same with these, but I have to stand over here, right? It's pretty self-explanatory once you do it. So let me just roll it. So there we go. Now we can just come in from the side again and knock them off. Okay, so that's, you know, 10 rounds bucked off, and I think there's an advantage to this, you know, doing it this way in certain circumstances. You know, like if you have a straight tree, you know, it enables you to like really control the log and keep it from bouncing and jumping around so much, which, you know, helps with accuracy, because you can just stand in the same spot, you know, and focus on, you know, your swing rather than worrying about where the log's going to be for each cut. You know, and then you can just spin the log and, you know, sort of cut from the same place, so you can sort of pick your spots where you're not going to run into deflectors and stuff like that. So I kind of stopped up here because, you know, I'm gonna have to make some decisions about these little saplings. I'm probably gonna clear these ones off next to this maple, and then I can do probably another 7 rounds, and at that point the log will be light enough that I can just drag everything over this direction where I have plenty of space. Yeah, and then I'll clean up the tops and get this all split up and stacked. But I hope that was useful. It might work for you, it might not. I'm not saying that this is the best system ever, but I do feel like it's kind of efficient. So I hope it's helpful. Yeah, hope everyone has a good time doing the challenge this year, and thanks a lot for watching.